There are seasons when waiting becomes the most difficult part of your journey, not because you do not believe something will change, but because you do not know when it will. Waiting stretches time in ways that can feel uncomfortable and uncertain. Days may pass quietly, without clear signs or direction, leaving you to wonder if anything is happening at all. In these moments, waiting can feel lonely, as though you are standing still while life continues to move around you. Love understands how heavy this kind of waiting can feel. It sees the questions you carry quietly and the patience you are trying to hold together. Waiting often brings a sense of vulnerability. When there is nothing to do but wait, there is little to distract you from your thoughts. Doubts may surface, asking whether your hope is misplaced or whether you are waiting for something that may never arrive. Love does not turn away from these doubts. It remains with you in them. Waiting is not a sign that you have been left behind. It is a place where presence becomes more important than answers. You may feel the urge to measure your waiting, to count how long it has been, to compare this season with others in your life or with the lives of people around you. This comparison can quietly deepen your frustration. Love gently releases you from the need to measure. Waiting is not a test you must pass. It is not proof of failure or delay. It is simply where you are right now, and that is enough to be accompanied. There are moments in waiting when silence feels loud, when the absence of reassurance makes you wonder if you are alone. Love speaks softly here, not with urgency or pressure, but with steadiness. You are not waiting alone. Presence does not withdraw just because answers are slow. It remains close, attentive to every moment you endure, even when you cannot sense it clearly. Waiting can make you question your worth. You may wonder if you are being overlooked, if others are moving forward while you remain unseen. Love does not see waiting as invisibility. It sees you fully, even in stillness. You are not less valued because you are waiting. Your life is not on pause. Growth is happening quietly, even if it does not feel productive. There is a difference between being inactive and being held. Waiting does not mean nothing is happening. It means something is unfolding without urgency. Love chooses to stay with you rather than rush you. Presence during waiting is intentional. It is not an afterthought. You are not being asked to endure alone while something else takes priority. You may feel tired of waiting, worn down by uncertainty, tempted to stop expecting anything at all. Love understands this fatigue. It does not demand that you remain hopeful in a way that costs you rest. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to admit that waiting is hard. Love remains with you in your honesty, not requiring you to feel strong. Waiting often invites you to confront what you cannot control. This can be uncomfortable, especially if you are used to managing outcomes. Love does not shame you for wanting control. It gently invites you to rest from it. You do not have to carry the responsibility of knowing what comes next. You are allowed to exist in this moment without resolving the future. There may be days when waiting feels endless, when progress seems invisible. Love does not mark these days as wasted. Every moment you remain is a moment of faithfulness, even if it does not feel inspiring. Faithfulness is not always active. Sometimes it looks like staying when leaving would feel easier. As you wait, you may notice small moments of care that arrive unexpectedly. A sense of calm, a brief reassurance, a quiet strength that carries you through another day. These moments are not accidental. They are reminders that presence has not left you, even if the larger picture remains unclear. You do not need to hurry this season. Waiting has its own rhythm, and love honors it. You are not behind because you are waiting. You are not forgotten because nothing has changed yet. You are being accompanied through a time that requires patience rather than action. Let yourself remain here for a moment. You do not need to know how long this waiting will last. You do not need to understand what it will lead to. You only need to know that you are not alone in it. Love is with you while you wait, steady and attentive, holding you through every quiet moment. There are times when waiting no longer feels neutral, when it begins to settle into your chest with a weight that is difficult to name. What once felt like patience slowly turns into loneliness, and the quiet around you feels less like rest and more like absence. In these moments, waiting can feel personal, as if something essential has been withheld. You may begin to wonder why this season feels so isolating, why reassurance feels distant, and why the path ahead remains unclear. Love understands this weight. It recognizes the loneliness that can grow inside waiting, especially when time stretches longer than expected. Loneliness in waiting often comes from feeling unseen. When nothing changes outwardly, it can feel as though your inner experience does not matter. You may be showing up each day, carrying your thoughts and questions quietly, while the world around you seems unaware. Love sees you here. Even when no one else notices the effort it takes to remain, love notices. You are not invisible because your journey is quiet. Stillness does not erase significance. Waiting can isolate you from others in subtle ways. Conversations may feel difficult when you do not know how to explain what you are going through. You may sense a distance between your inner world and the lives of those around you, especially if their paths seem more active or resolved. Love does not dismiss this distance. It understands how separation can grow when experiences no longer align. But isolation does not mean abandonment. Even when you feel alone among people, you are not alone in care. There are moments when loneliness makes you question whether you are meant to carry this season by yourself. You may wonder why support feels limited, why understanding feels rare. Love does not interpret your loneliness as a failure to connect. It sees it as a sign that you are walking through something that requires deeper presence than casual reassurance can offer. This presence is already with you, even if it does not arrive through familiar voices. When waiting becomes lonely, thoughts can turn inward in ways that feel overwhelming. You may replay past decisions, wondering if you are here because of something you did wrong. You may question whether you deserve this uncertainty. Love gently interrupts these conclusions. Loneliness does not mean you are being corrected or punished. It means you are human, navigating a season that stretches your emotional capacity. You are not at fault for feeling alone. There is a particular ache that comes from waiting without companionship, from feeling as though you are holding questions that no one else can carry with you. Love acknowledges this ache. It does not minimize it or rush you past it. You are allowed to name how lonely this feels. Honesty does not push love away. It invites closeness. You may notice that loneliness intensifies at certain times, late at night, early in the morning, or during moments of quiet when distractions fall away. Love is present in these moments too. It does not withdraw when your defenses lower. It remains attentive when the silence feels loud. Even when your thoughts spiral, love stays grounded, offering steadiness rather than answers. Waiting can make you feel disconnected from yourself as well. You may not recognize your own reactions or emotions, feeling uncertain about what you need or how to comfort yourself. Love does not judge this confusion. It understands that prolonged uncertainty can unsettle your sense of identity. You are not losing yourself. You are learning how to exist without clear markers, and that learning takes time. Loneliness may tempt you to withdraw further, to protect yourself by expecting less, feeling less, or hoping less. Love understands this instinct. It knows how disappointment can teach caution. But love also remains patient, not forcing openness, simply staying available. You do not have to push yourself to feel connected when you do not. Presence does not require effort. It remains even when you close your eyes to it. There may be moments when you wonder if anyone would notice if you stopped waiting, if you stopped caring, if you let go of hope entirely. Love notices. Your persistence matters, even when it feels unnoticed. You are not forgotten because your endurance is quiet. Quiet endurance still counts. Waiting can feel especially lonely when it seems endless, when there is no clear point at which you can say this season will be over. Love does not offer false timelines to ease your discomfort. Instead, it offers companionship without conditions. You are not required to know how long this will last to be supported within it. You may find yourself longing for reassurance that does not come, or for clarity that remains absent. This longing can intensify loneliness, making you feel as though you are reaching into empty space. Love is not absent from your reaching. It is closer than you think, even when reassurance does not take the form you expect. There are moments when loneliness feels like a question directed at your worth. You may ask whether you are less valued because you are waiting, because nothing is happening outwardly. Love does not measure your value by movement or results. Your worth is not diminished by stillness. You are not overlooked because you are quiet. Waiting can also bring a sense of grief for what you hoped would already be different, grief for the version of life you imagined by now. Love allows this grief. You do not need to suppress it to remain faithful. Grief is not a sign of distrust. It is a sign that you care deeply. Love honors that care. Loneliness may make you feel fragile, more sensitive to small disappointments or changes. Love does not see this sensitivity as weakness. It sees it as a natural response to prolonged waiting. When you have been holding yourself steady for a long time, even small shifts can feel significant. Love remains gentle with this fragility, not demanding resilience beyond your capacity. You may question whether you should be handling this better, whether you should feel calmer or more hopeful by now. Love releases you from these expectations. There is no correct way to wait. There is no standard emotional response that proves faithfulness. You are allowed to feel what you feel without judgment. Loneliness in waiting can make you feel as though you are standing on the outside, watching life move forward without you. Love reminds you that life is not passing you by. You are living even here. This season counts. Your experience matters, even if it does not resemble progress in the way you expected. There may be times when you feel unseen even by love, when silence stretches so long that it feels personal. Love remains steady in this silence. It does not withdraw because you feel disconnected. Disconnection does not cancel presence. It simply makes it harder to perceive. As you sit with loneliness, you may notice that it reveals deeper longings for connection, for understanding, for reassurance that you matter. These longings are not wrong. They are expressions of your humanity. Love receives them without correction. You do not need to justify your need for closeness. Waiting can teach you how much you rely on connection to feel grounded. When that connection feels distant, it can shake your sense of safety. Love offers a quieter form of connection, one that does not rely on constant interaction or affirmation. This connection remains even when you feel alone. You may find yourself withdrawing emotionally, conserving energy because loneliness feels too heavy to engage with fully. Love does not force engagement. It respects your need to protect yourself. At the same time, it remains present, offering gentle companionship without demand. Loneliness can distort time, making moments feel longer and days feel heavier. Love is not bound by this distortion. It remains patient, moving at a pace that honors your experience rather than rushing to change it. There may be moments when you feel tempted to numb the loneliness, to distract yourself from it completely. Love understands this desire. It does not condemn coping. It simply remains available beneath the distraction, ready when you return. Waiting alone can make you feel unchosen, as though others are receiving what you are not. Love does not operate on favoritism. Your waiting is not evidence of neglect. It is part of a journey that does not unfold according to comparison. You may feel tired of explaining yourself, tired of hoping others will understand. Love does not require explanation. It understands without words. You are not required to articulate your pain perfectly to be cared for. Loneliness can bring a sense of vulnerability that feels unsafe. Love creates safety not by removing vulnerability, but by staying with you in it. You do not have to hide your loneliness here. It is allowed to exist. As this season continues, you may notice moments when loneliness softens briefly, when you feel accompanied without knowing why. These moments are reminders, not promises. They remind you that presence has not left, even if it does not stay constantly felt. You are not weak for feeling lonely while you wait. You are responding honestly to uncertainty. Love does not ask you to minimize this experience. It asks you to remain open to companionship, even if it arrives quietly. Waiting does not mean you have been set aside. Loneliness does not mean you are forgotten. You are being held in a season that asks more patience than clarity. Love remains with you in the waiting, attentive to every moment, every breath, every quiet ache. Stay here a little longer. You do not need to escape this loneliness to be supported. You do not need to resolve it to be accompanied. Love is with you while you wait, even when waiting feels heavy, even when it feels lonely. Waiting does not only test your patience. Over time, it begins to test your faith in quieter, deeper ways. Faith may not disappear suddenly, but it can feel thinner, more fragile, as days pass without resolution. You may still believe, yet find yourself believing with less certainty, less energy, less confidence than before. Love sees this shift clearly. It does not interpret it as failure. It understands that prolonged waiting can wear down even the strongest trust. There are moments when faith feels heavy instead of hopeful. What once brought comfort may now raise questions. You may notice that prayers feel repetitive, or that words no longer come easily. Love does not measure faith by how inspired you feel. Faith does not have to feel alive to still be present. Sometimes faith survives quietly, resting beneath exhaustion. When waiting stretches on, you may begin to wonder whether your faith is enough. You may ask yourself if you are believing correctly, praying correctly, or trusting correctly. Love gently releases you from these calculations. Faith is not a formula. It is a relationship that allows room for doubt, fatigue, and uncertainty. You are not required to perform faith in order to be held. Waiting can also bring disappointment with expectations you did not realize you were holding. You may have believed that faith would bring quicker clarity, smoother paths, or clearer signs. When these do not arrive, it can feel as though faith itself has let you down. Love understands this disappointment. It does not shame you for expecting care to feel more visible. It simply remains, offering companionship rather than correction. There are moments when faith feels quiet enough that you wonder if it is still there at all. You may question whether your trust has faded beyond recognition. Love sees what you cannot. Faith does not vanish simply because it becomes less expressive. Sometimes it becomes quieter so that it can survive without pressure. You may feel guilty for questioning, as though doubt disqualifies you from care. Love does not share this view. Doubt is not rejection. It is often a sign that you care deeply and are struggling to reconcile hope with reality. Love remains patient with doubt, allowing it to exist without fear. Waiting can test faith by asking you to live without immediate reassurance. This can feel unsettling, especially if you are used to feeling guided or affirmed. Love does not withdraw affirmation to punish you. It invites a different kind of trust, one that does not rely on constant feedback. This trust grows slowly without spectacle. You may notice that your faith feels different now than it did before this season. It may feel less certain, less enthusiastic, more cautious. Love does not require your faith to remain unchanged. Growth often involves shedding illusions and learning how to trust without guarantees. This transformation is not loss. It is deepening. There may be moments when you feel tempted to disengage completely, to stop believing because believing feels painful. Love understands this temptation. It does not demand that you hold onto faith tightly. It simply remains present, allowing you to loosen your grip without falling away completely. Faith can feel especially tested when waiting intersects with disappointment, loss, or unanswered prayers. You may wonder why care does not look the way you expected. Love does not offer easy explanations here. It offers presence instead. Faith does not require answers to remain alive. It requires connection. You may compare your faith to others, noticing how confident or assured they seem. This comparison can deepen your sense of inadequacy. Love does not compare faith. It honors the quiet persistence that continues even when certainty is absent. Your faith does not need to resemble anyone else's to be real. Waiting may expose fears you did not know you carried. Fears about being forgotten, overlooked, or unsupported. These fears can feel threatening to faith. Love does not dismiss them. It meets them with steadiness, reminding you that fear does not cancel care. There may be days when faith feels like nothing more than showing up, breathing, and continuing to exist within uncertainty. Love recognizes this as faith. Faith does not always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like remaining when leaving would feel easier. You are not required to feel inspired by faith in this season. You are not required to feel close, certain, or hopeful every day. Love does not withdraw because your faith feels tired. It draws closer, offering rest rather than demands. Waiting tests faith by removing control. This loss of control can feel threatening, especially if faith has been associated with outcomes. Love invites you to separate faith from results. Faith is not a transaction. It is a relationship that remains even when outcomes are unknown. You may find that faith during waiting becomes quieter, simpler, more honest. It may consist of fewer words, fewer expectations, fewer assumptions. Love honors this simplicity. Faith does not need complexity to be valid. There may be moments when you feel disconnected from faith entirely, when it feels distant or unreachable. Love remains connected even when you feel disconnected. Your perception does not define presence. Faith can exist without sensation. As waiting continues, you may begin to realize that faith is not about maintaining certainty, but about allowing yourself to be held when certainty fades. Love does not ask you to be unshaken. It asks you to remain open. You are not failing because your faith feels tested. You are responding honestly to a season that asks more patience than clarity. Love does not see your struggle as weakness. It sees it as evidence of your willingness to remain, even when trust feels difficult. Stay here for a moment. You do not need to resolve your faith. You do not need to strengthen it or explain it. You are allowed to exist within uncertainty, held by love that does not depend on how confident you feel. Love remains with you while your faith is tested, steady and gentle, not demanding more than you can give, honoring the quiet trust that continues. When faith feels strained, the desire to understand often grows stronger. You may find yourself searching for explanations, patterns, or reasons that could make waiting feel more manageable. Understanding can feel like safety. It can feel like something solid to hold on to when certainty is slipping away. Love recognizes this desire. It knows how natural it is to want clarity when faith feels fragile. But love also knows that understanding is not always what sustains you in seasons like this. There are moments when your mind works tirelessly, replaying events, imagining outcomes, and asking questions that never seem to reach an answer. This effort can be exhausting. Love does not criticize you for trying to understand. It simply invites you to notice how much weight this effort has placed on you. Understanding, when demanded too urgently, can become another burden rather than a comfort. You may believe that if you could just understand why this is happening, the waiting would feel easier. If you could see the purpose, the timeline, or the outcome, you might feel more at peace. Love gently reminds you that peace does not always come from explanation. Sometimes peace comes from release. Sometimes it comes from allowing yourself not to know. Releasing the need to understand does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you stop thinking or asking questions. It means you stop requiring answers in order to feel safe. Love invites you to rest from the pressure of making sense of everything right now. You are not failing because you do not understand. You are human, navigating a season that does not offer clarity on demand. Faith under pressure often tries to compensate by seeking control through understanding. When you cannot influence outcomes, understanding can feel like the next best thing. Love sees this impulse with compassion. It knows that control feels comforting when uncertainty feels threatening. But control is not the same as security. Love offers a different kind of security, one that does not depend on knowing. There may be parts of your story that feel unresolved, pieces that do not fit together neatly. You may feel unsettled by these gaps, uncomfortable with the idea that some things remain unfinished. Love does not rush to close these gaps. It allows them to exist without urgency. Not everything needs to be resolved immediately to be held. You may notice frustration arising when understanding remains out of reach. This frustration can turn inward, making you feel inadequate or impatient with yourself. Love does not add to this pressure. It releases you from the expectation that you should be able to figure everything out. You are not required to be your own source of certainty. Releasing the need to understand also means accepting that some questions may not be answered in the way you expect. Love does not promise explanations that satisfy every concern. It promises presence that sustains you regardless. Understanding can be delayed without diminishing care. There may be moments when you fear that letting go of understanding means letting go of faith. Love gently corrects this fear. Faith does not depend on explanation. It depends on relationship. You are not abandoning faith by admitting that you do not know. You are allowing faith to exist without conditions. You may feel vulnerable when you stop trying to understand, as though you are stepping into uncertainty without protection. Love remains with you here. Vulnerability is not exposure to harm. It is openness to support that does not require comprehension. The mind often seeks understanding to avoid discomfort. When you release the need to understand, discomfort may surface more clearly. Love does not leave you alone with this discomfort. It stays close, offering steadiness rather than solutions. You do not have to escape discomfort to be safe. Releasing control can feel like surrender, and surrender can feel frightening when you are not sure what will happen next. Love does not force surrender. It invites it gently, allowing you to loosen your grip gradually. You are not asked to give up everything at once. Small releases are enough. There may be moments when you catch yourself returning to old questions, old patterns of analysis. Love does not shame you for this. Release is not a one-time decision. It is a practice that unfolds over time. Each time you notice and soften, you are participating in it. You may begin to notice that when you stop demanding understanding, your inner space becomes quieter. Not empty, but less crowded. This quiet can feel unfamiliar at first. Love remains with you as you adjust, reminding you that quiet does not mean loss. It means room. Faith under pressure often feels like it must work harder to survive. Releasing the need to understand allows faith to rest. It allows trust to exist without constant justification. Love does not require you to defend your faith with explanations. It holds faith gently even when it feels small. There may be relief in realizing that you do not have to solve this season. You do not have to decode its meaning or predict its outcome. Love has not placed that responsibility on you. You are allowed to live without carrying the burden of explanation. You may worry that if you stop trying to understand, you will miss something important. Love does not operate through fear of missing out. What is meant for you will not be lost because you chose rest over analysis. Presence does not require constant vigilance. Releasing the need to understand creates space for trust to develop differently. Trust no longer depends on logic or clarity. It depends on consistency of care. Love has been consistent with you, even in uncertainty, even in silence. You may notice moments when acceptance begins to replace resistance. This acceptance does not mean approval of difficulty. It means acknowledging reality without fighting it internally. Love supports this acceptance, knowing that peace grows when resistance softens. There may still be unanswered questions, and they may still matter to you. Love does not ask you to forget them. It simply asks you not to let them control your sense of safety. You are more than your questions. You are held beyond them. As you release the need to understand, you may feel a subtle shift in how you carry waiting. The weight may not disappear, but it becomes more balanced. Love helps you carry what remains without demanding resolution. You do not need to arrive at certainty to move forward. You do not need explanations to be supported. You are allowed to exist within mystery without fear. Love is not threatened by what you do not know. Stay here for a moment. Allow yourself not to understand. Allow yourself not to control. You are not falling behind by releasing these demands. You are stepping into a gentler way of being held. Love remains with you, steady and patient, even as understanding loosens its grip. You are safe to rest here, without answers, without control, accompanied fully in this moment. When you begin to release the need to understand and control everything, another challenge often appears quietly. It is the difficulty of resting without guilt. You may notice that even when you stop searching for answers, your body and mind remain tense, as if rest must be earned or justified. Love sees this tension clearly. It understands how deeply you may have learned to associate rest with weakness, irresponsibility, or avoidance. Love gently invites you to consider a different truth. Rest is not a reward for finishing everything. It is not something you receive only after proving your worth or endurance. Rest is a necessity, given freely, not a privilege to be earned. Love does not ask you to exhaust yourself before allowing relief. It offers rest because you are human, not because you have done enough. You may feel uneasy when you try to rest. Thoughts may surface telling you that you should be doing more, trying harder, or staying alert. This inner pressure can make rest feel uncomfortable, even unsafe. Love does not rush you through this discomfort. It understands that learning to rest without guilt takes time. You are unlearning habits that once helped you survive. There may be a belief within you that if you stop striving, something will fall apart. You may worry that rest means letting go of responsibility, faith, or care. Love reassures you that rest does not undo what matters. Supports what matters. Nothing essential is lost when you pause. Care continues even when effort stops. Resting without guilt also means allowing yourself to stop explaining your exhaustion. You do not need to justify why you are tired. You do not need to provide reasons that make your rest acceptable. Love already understands the weight you have been carrying. You are not required to prove that you deserve relief. You may notice resistance arising when you allow yourself to rest. This resistance can come from fear of stillness, fear of what might surface when distractions fade. Love does not force you to face everything at once. It creates a safe space where rest can happen gradually. You are allowed to rest in small moments, not all at once. There is a difference between rest that numbs and rest that restores. Love does not pressure you to rest perfectly. It simply invites you to notice what actually helps you feel supported. Rest may look like quiet or sleep or gentle movement, or simply not demanding anything from yourself for a while. There is no single correct way to rest. Guilt often arises when rest feels undeserved. You may think of others who seem to be doing more, suffering more, or carrying heavier burdens. Love does not compare suffering or effort. Your need for rest is valid on its own. You are allowed to receive care without measuring yourself against anyone else. Learning to rest without guilt also means allowing your faith to rest. Faith does not need to be active all the time. It does not need constant affirmation or expression. Love holds your faith steady even when you are not thinking about it. You are not abandoning trust by resting. You are allowing it to breathe. There may be moments when rest feels unproductive, when you feel anxious about time passing without visible progress. Love gently reminds you that rest is not wasted time. It restores what waiting and striving have worn down. Growth does not stop because you pause. Often it deepens. You may notice that when you truly rest, emotions you have been holding back begin to surface. This can feel unsettling. Love does not withdraw when emotions appear. It remains present, offering steadiness rather than urgency. Rest does not require emotional silence. It allows honesty. Resting without guilt also involves releasing the idea that you must always be available, responsive, or strong. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say no, even quietly, by choosing stillness. Love does not interpret boundaries as rejection. It honors them as care. There may be days when rest feels easier, and days when guilt returns quickly. Love does not expect consistency. Learning to rest is a process, not an achievement. Each moment you allow yourself to pause, even briefly, you are practicing trust. You may worry that if you rest too much, you will lose momentum or purpose. Love assures you that purpose is not fragile. It does not disappear when you slow down. Purpose remains patient and secure, waiting for you to return at your own pace. Rest can feel unfamiliar if you are used to living in constant alertness. Your body may take time to recognize that it is safe to relax. Love remains patient during this adjustment. You are not doing rest wrong if it feels awkward at first. There is permission here to stop trying to improve yourself for a moment. You do not need to fix, analyze, or progress right now. Love is not waiting for a better version of you. It is present with you as you are. As you learn to rest without guilt, you may notice a subtle softening inside. The pressure to perform eases slightly. The need to justify yourself quiets. This softening is not weakness. It is relief. It is your system responding to safety. You are not lazy for resting. You are not unfaithful for stopping. You are not falling behind because you choose stillness. Love does not measure your life by output. It measures it by presence. Rest does not mean you have given up. It means you are allowing yourself to be sustained rather than depleted. Love invites you to receive this sustenance without apology. Stay here for a moment. Let your body be supported. Let your mind loosen its grip. You do not need to be productive in this space. You are allowed to simply exist. Love remains with you as you rest, steady and unchanging, not keeping score, not asking for more. You are safe to pause here, learning gently that rest can be given without guilt and received without fear. There are moments when rest reveals something you did not expect. As you stop striving and allow yourself to slow down, you may become more aware of your weakness. What was once hidden beneath effort and endurance now feels closer to the surface. You may notice fatigue, uncertainty, emotional sensitivity, or a sense of limitation that feels uncomfortable to acknowledge. Love sees this clearly. Weakness does not surprise love. It does not cause distance. It invites gentleness. You may have learned to associate weakness with failure, believing that being strong is what makes you worthy of care. When weakness appears, it can feel like exposure, as though something essential about you has been revealed. Love does not interpret weakness as deficiency. It sees it as a natural part of being human. You are not less valuable because you feel fragile. You are not less held because you cannot carry everything on your own. Weakness often feels threatening because it removes the illusion of control. When you realize how limited your energy or understanding is, it can create fear. Love does not respond to this fear with pressure. It responds with steadiness. You are not required to overcome your weakness to be supported. Support is already present within it. There may be days when your weakness feels physical, when your body feels heavy or slow. Other days it may feel emotional, as though your resilience has worn thin. Sometimes it feels mental, when concentration fades and clarity feels distant. Love does not rank these experiences. All forms of weakness are received with the same care. None of them disqualify you from being held. You may feel embarrassed by your weakness, especially if you are used to being capable or dependable. Admitting limitation can feel like a loss of identity. Love does not strip you of dignity when you are weak. Preserves it. You are not defined by what you can produce or endure. You are defined by your existence, which remains precious regardless of capacity. Weakness can also bring fear of being a burden. You may worry that needing support makes you inconvenient or undesirable. Love does not view you as a burden. It does not measure your worth by how little you need. Needing support is not a flaw. It is an invitation for connection. There are moments when weakness feels isolating, when you withdraw because you do not want others to see you like this. Love understands this instinct to protect yourself. It does not force exposure. It remains with you whether you share your weakness or keep it private. You are not required to be visible in your struggle to be cared for. You may find yourself wishing you were stronger, wishing you could return to a version of yourself that felt more capable. Love does not ask you to reject these wishes. It simply invites you not to let them turn into self-judgment. Longing for strength does not mean you are failing. It means you remember what it feels like to have more capacity. Weakness often invites comparison. You may look at others who seem to manage life with ease and wonder why you cannot do the same. Love does not compare journeys. It understands that each person carries unseen weight. Your weakness is not evidence that you are behind. It is evidence that you are carrying something real. There may be moments when you feel disappointed with yourself for not handling things better. This disappointment can be heavy, turning inward as criticism. Love does not join this criticism. It offers compassion instead. You are not expected to respond perfectly to difficult seasons. You are allowed to struggle. Being held in weakness means that support does not wait for improvement. Love does not say, "Come back when you are stronger." It stays with you now exactly as you are. You do not have to earn this presence by becoming more capable. It is already yours. Weakness can make you feel exposed to uncertainty, as though you no longer have defenses against disappointment. Love does not remove uncertainty immediately, provides stability within it. You are not protected by strength here. You are protected by care. There may be times when weakness feels like stillness, when you cannot move forward or backward. This immobility can feel frightening. Love does not push you to move before you are ready. It holds you in place, allowing you to rest without pressure to progress. You may notice that weakness brings up old fears, fears of being abandoned, overlooked, or dismissed. Love does not dismiss these fears. It meets them with consistency. Weakness does not cause love to leave. It often becomes the place where love is felt most clearly, even if quietly. There is a tenderness in weakness that you may not be used to allowing. When defenses lower, emotions can feel closer, more intense. Love does not rush you to manage these emotions. It allows them to exist without judgment. Feeling deeply is not something you need to fix. You may wonder whether weakness means you are losing ground, whether it signals decline rather than growth. Love sees weakness differently. It sees it as honesty, as a moment when you are no longer pretending to be more than you are. This honesty creates space for real support. Weakness can feel unpredictable. Some days you may feel slightly stronger, other days much weaker. This fluctuation can feel frustrating. Love does not expect consistency from you. It remains constant even when you are not. You may feel the urge to hide your weakness from yourself, to stay busy or distracted so you do not have to feel it fully. Love does not force awareness. It simply remains present, offering safety if and when you are ready to notice what you feel. Being held in weakness also means that you are not required to explain it. You do not need to justify why you feel this way or how long it has lasted. Love does not demand reasons. It responds to reality as it is. Weakness may reveal how much you rely on external validation to feel secure. When strength fades, validation may feel less accessible. Love offers a quieter assurance, one that does not depend on performance or recognition. This assurance remains even when you feel unseen. There may be moments when you feel ashamed of needing rest, reassurance, or support. Shame often grows in silence. Love does not allow shame to define you. It meets shame with acceptance, reminding you that need is not something to be embarrassed about. Weakness can slow your pace in ways that feel uncomfortable. You may feel out of sync with expectations, your own or others. Love does not rush you to catch up. It honors the pace that weakness requires. Slowness is not failure here. It is care. You may find that weakness opens you to receiving in ways strength never allowed. When you are no longer able to carry everything, you become more aware of what carries you. Love does not demand this awareness. It simply offers itself. There may be moments when weakness feels endless, when you cannot imagine feeling capable again. Love does not promise that weakness will disappear quickly. Promises that you will not be alone within it. Presence does not depend on improvement. Being held in weakness means that you are allowed to stop proving yourself. You do not need to demonstrate resilience, positivity, or faithfulness right now. Love holds you without requiring display. You are allowed to be quiet, uncertain, and incomplete. You may notice that weakness softens you toward others, making you more compassionate or understanding. Love sees this softening as growth, even if it comes through difficulty. Weakness is not wasted. It shapes your capacity to connect. There may be days when weakness feels heavier than you can manage. On those days, love does not ask you to manage it. It asks you to let yourself be held. You are not responsible for carrying everything you feel. Weakness does not mean you are fragile beyond repair. It means you are alive and responsive. Love does not treat you as broken. It treats you as someone worthy of care. As you sit with your weakness, you may begin to notice that it does not push love away. It draws love closer. You are not tolerated here. You are embraced. You do not need to become stronger to move forward. Strength will return in its own time, shaped by what you are learning now. Love does not rush this process. It values what is happening beneath the surface. Stay here for a moment. Let yourself feel supported without needing to change. You are not being judged by your weakness. You are being held within it. Love remains steady, patient, and close, especially now. You are still held, fully and completely, in your weakness. After weakness has been acknowledged and allowed, something subtle begins to take place. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive with certainty or dramatic change. Healing begins quietly, beneath the surface, in ways that are easy to miss if you are looking only for visible transformation. Love sees this healing clearly even when you cannot. It is not delayed simply because it is unseen. It is unfolding with care and intention. Quiet healing often feels slower than you expect. You may not wake up feeling different. You may not notice immediate relief or clarity. This can make you question whether anything is happening at all. Love understands this doubt. Healing does not always feel active. Often, it feels like subtle shifts in how you carry yourself, how you respond, how you breathe. These changes may seem insignificant, but they are meaningful. You may notice that certain reactions soften slightly. Things that once overwhelmed you may still feel difficult, but not as consuming. This does not mean the pain is gone. It means healing is creating space around it. Love does not remove pain abruptly. It teaches you how to live with it more gently until it no longer defines you. Quiet healing often works through consistency rather than intensity. It unfolds in moments of rest, in pauses you allow yourself, in the decision not to push when you are tired. Love honors these moments. They are not avoidance. They are repair. Healing respects your limits and moves at a pace your system can sustain. There may be times when healing feels invisible because your circumstances have not changed. You may still be waiting. You may still feel uncertain. Love reminds you that healing is not dependent on external resolution. You can heal even while you wait. You can become more whole even when answers are delayed. Quiet healing can feel unsettling because it does not provide clear markers of progress. You may want reassurance that you are getting better, that something is improving. Love does not always provide measurable proof. It invites trust in the process, even when progress feels intangible. Healing does not need to be tracked to be real. You may notice that healing shows up in how you speak to yourself. The inner voice that once criticized may begin to soften. Judgment may still appear, but it does not dominate as completely. Love sees this shift as significant. Healing often begins with gentleness toward yourself, even before circumstances change. Quiet healing can also bring moments of discomfort. As old patterns loosen, you may feel unsteady. What once felt familiar, even if painful, begins to change. Love remains present during this adjustment. Discomfort does not mean something is wrong. It often means something is shifting. You may find that healing reveals emotions you did not know were present. Grief, anger, sadness, or relief may surface unexpectedly. Love does not rush you through these emotions. It allows them to exist without labeling them as setbacks. Feeling is part of healing, not a detour from it. There may be days when healing feels distant, when exhaustion or doubt returns. Love does not withdraw on those days. Healing is not linear. It does not progress steadily forward. It moves in waves, responding to what you can carry at each moment. Setbacks do not erase progress. They are part of the rhythm. Quiet healing often takes place when you are not actively trying to heal. It happens while you live your life, while you rest, while you wait. Love works beneath conscious effort, restoring what has been worn down over time. You are not responsible for making healing happen. You are responsible only for allowing yourself to be supported. You may notice that healing affects your sense of safety. Situations that once triggered immediate fear may begin to feel slightly more manageable. The fear may still exist, but it no longer controls you completely. Love sees this as healing. Reduced intensity is still change. Quiet healing can feel frustrating because it does not satisfy the desire for resolution. You may want closure, answers, or certainty. Love does not withhold these to be cruel. It knows that healing does not always align with resolution. You can heal even without closure. You can move forward even without understanding everything. You may find that healing shows up in your ability to pause rather than react. When something difficult arises, you may notice a brief moment of choice. This pause is healing. It means your nervous system is learning that it is safe to slow down. Love honors this pause as progress. Quiet healing often rebuilds trust gradually. Trust in yourself, in others, in life. This trust does not return suddenly. It develops through repeated experiences of being supported, of surviving moments you thought would break you. Love is patient with this rebuilding. Trust grows at the pace of safety. You may feel tempted to dismiss quiet healing because it does not match your expectations. Love gently invites you to notice what has changed, even if it feels small. The fact that you are still here, still breathing, still open, is not insignificant. Healing often looks like staying when leaving would feel easier. There may be moments when healing feels lonely because it is happening internally. Others may not see the work you are doing simply by existing through this season. Love sees it clearly. Your quiet endurance matters. Healing does not require an audience. Quiet healing can feel fragile. You may worry that one setback will undo everything. Love does not see healing as something that can be easily lost. What has been restored within you remains, even when you feel shaken. Healing builds resilience beneath the surface. You may notice that healing affects how you relate to waiting. The waiting may still be present, but it feels less threatening. You may feel more grounded within uncertainty. This grounding is healing. Love does not remove waiting immediately. It strengthens you within it. Quiet healing often teaches you to listen to your body. Signals of fatigue, tension, or overwhelm become harder to ignore. Love encourages this awareness. Listening is not weakness. It is care. Healing respects the wisdom of your body. There may be moments when healing feels incomplete, when you feel disappointed by how slow it seems. Love does not rush healing to meet your expectations. Prioritizes sustainability over speed. You are not being prepared for one moment. You are being supported for a lifetime. You may find that healing reshapes your priorities. Things that once felt urgent may feel less important. Rest, presence, and honesty may take precedence. Love sees this shift as alignment. Healing clarifies what truly matters. Quiet healing can feel like learning how to live again, but differently, with more awareness, with more boundaries, with more compassion. Love does not ask you to return to who you were before. It supports who you are becoming. You may notice that healing allows you to hold both pain and peace at the same time. They no longer cancel each other out. This coexistence is healing. It means you are no longer waiting for pain to disappear before allowing yourself moments of peace. There may be days when healing feels imperceptible. On those days, love remains at work beneath the surface. Healing does not stop because you cannot feel it. Continues quietly, restoring balance where it is needed most. You are not required to believe that healing is happening for it to continue. Doubt does not interrupt this process. Love does not require your confidence. It requires only your presence. Quiet healing often teaches you patience with yourself. You begin to accept that growth takes time, that some wounds need gentleness rather than force. Love supports this patience, knowing that rushed healing often creates new harm. You may find that healing opens you to moments of gratitude, not for what happened, but for what you have learned about yourself. Love honors this gratitude without romanticizing pain. Healing does not make suffering good. It makes you more whole. As healing continues beneath the surface, you may feel more anchored, even if circumstances remain uncertain. This anchoring is not accidental. It is the result of care that has been present all along. You do not need to monitor this healing. You do not need to check whether it is enough. Love is attentive to every detail. What is needed is being restored. Stay here for a moment. Let yourself trust that something good is happening, even if you cannot see it clearly. You are not stuck. You are not stagnant. You are healing quietly, deeply, and safely. Love remains with you in this process, patient and gentle, honoring every unseen step. Quiet healing continues beneath the surface, holding you as you move forward. As quiet healing continues beneath the surface, you may begin to notice something changing in the way you experience your days. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently. God's presence no longer feels like something distant you must reach for. It begins to feel closer, woven into ordinary moments, present in ways that do not demand your attention but remain steady nonetheless. There was a time when you may have believed that God's presence would only be felt in significant events, in clear answers, or in moments of strong emotion. When those moments did not appear, you may have assumed presence was absent. Love invites you to see differently now. Presence is not limited to what feels spiritual or extraordinary. It lives quietly within your daily life, accompanying you through moments that seem simple, repetitive, or unremarkable. You may begin to notice presence in the rhythm of your breathing, in the way your body moves through familiar spaces. These moments do not announce themselves as sacred. They do not interrupt your thoughts or demand reflection. yet they carry a steadiness that reminds you that you are not moving through life alone. God's presence does not compete with your responsibilities. It moves with you through them. Daily life often feels disconnected from faith because it is filled with routine. Tasks repeat. Days blend together. You may wonder where meaning fits into this repetition. Love reminds you that repetition does not erase significance. Presence is not bored by routine. It remains attentive, finding value in your consistency, in your showing up, even when nothing changes outwardly. You may begin to sense God's presence during moments of transition. When you wake up and the day has not yet taken shape. When you pause between tasks. When you prepare to rest. These in-between moments often go unnoticed, yet they hold a quiet openness. Love meets you there, not with instruction, but with companionship. There are days when your mind feels busy, occupied by thoughts, plans, or worries. Presence does not withdraw during these moments. It does not require silence to exist. God's presence remains steady even when your attention is divided. You do not need to clear your mind or create perfect conditions to be accompanied. You may notice that presence feels different now than it did before. It may feel less intense, less emotional, less defined. Love invites you not to interpret this as loss. What you are experiencing is a quieter form of connection, one that does not rely on sensation. This presence is stable because it is not dependent on how you feel. In daily life, God's presence often reveals itself through subtle reassurance rather than dramatic comfort. It may appear as a sense of grounding when you feel overwhelmed, or a quiet strength that helps you continue. These moments may feel ordinary, but they are not insignificant. They are evidence of care that adapts to your reality. You may notice presence in moments of kindness, both given and received. A gentle interaction, a small act of patience, a moment of understanding. Love moves through these interactions, not to prove anything, but to remind you that connection still exists in a world that often feels disconnected. There may be times when you feel distant from God during daily life, especially when you are tired or discouraged. Love does not interpret this distance as rejection. Presence does not disappear because you feel disconnected. It remains patient, allowing you to return to awareness when you are ready. Daily life includes moments of frustration, disappointment, and fatigue. Presence does not avoid these moments. God does not wait for you to feel calm or grateful before drawing near. Presence enters difficulty quietly, offering steadiness rather than solutions. You are not expected to transform your struggles into meaning immediately. You may begin to realize that God's presence in daily life feels less like being guided and more like being accompanied. There is a difference. Guidance often implies direction or instruction. Companionship implies staying. Love chooses to stay with you, even when direction is unclear. You may notice presence when you allow yourself to slow down slightly, even for a moment. When you choose not to rush through everything. These small pauses create space for awareness. Love does not demand that you slow down all the time. It simply meets you when you do. Daily life can feel isolating, especially when you feel misunderstood or unseen. God's presence offers a quiet counter to this isolation. Even when you feel alone among others, presence remains. You are not required to feel connected to be connected. You may notice that presence becomes more familiar over time, not because it becomes stronger, but because you become more receptive. Quiet healing has softened your resistance, allowing you to notice what was already there. Love has not moved closer. You have become more aware. There may be days when presence feels harder to recognize, when routine feels heavy and your awareness feels dull. Love does not withdraw on these days. Presence does not depend on your sensitivity. It remains consistent, waiting without pressure. You may find that daily presence helps you feel less urgency to escape your life or reach the next stage. You begin to recognize that this moment, however ordinary, is not empty. Love does not require your life to be different to be meaningful. God's presence in daily life does not separate the sacred from the ordinary. It dissolves that boundary. Washing dishes, commuting, resting, thinking, waiting. None of these moments are excluded from care. You do not need to step outside your life to be met. You may begin to trust that presence is with you even when you are not thinking about it. This trust is not something you force. It develops naturally as you experience consistency over time. Love builds trust through reliability, not intensity. There may be moments when you feel gratitude arise spontaneously, not because everything is good, but because something feels stable beneath the uncertainty. This stability is presence. Love offers it quietly, without requiring acknowledgement. Daily life also includes moments of joy that appear briefly and then fade. A laugh, a sense of relief, a moment of beauty. Love allows these moments without demanding that they last. They are reminders, not promises. You may notice that presence affects how you relate to yourself. You become less harsh, less demanding. You allow yourself to exist without constant evaluation. This gentleness is not self-indulgence. It is alignment with care. There may be times when you feel tempted to look for signs, confirmations, or proof of presence. Love does not condemn this desire. It gently invites you to notice that presence does not always announce itself. It often remains steady and quiet, like a background rhythm. God's presence in daily life does not require perfection. It does not require consistency. It does not require awareness at all times. Presence is not something you maintain. It is something you are given. You may begin to experience daily life as less threatening, even if it remains challenging. Presence creates a sense of support that does not remove difficulty but changes how you carry it. You feel less alone within it. There may be moments when presence feels like nothing more than the ability to continue. Love honors this. Continuing is not small. It is an expression of resilience supported by care. You may realize that God's presence has been with you longer than you thought, even before you recognized it. Quiet healing has simply made it easier to notice. Love has not been absent. It has been patient. As you move through your days, allow yourself to trust that presence accompanies you without effort. You do not need to seek it constantly. You do not need to hold on to it. It remains. Stay here for a moment. Notice where you are. Notice that you are still being held. God's presence is not distant or conditional. It is here now in this ordinary moment. Daily life is not a distraction from connection. It is where connection lives. Love remains with you in every small step, every quiet breath, every ordinary day, steady and unchanging. As you begin to recognize God's presence woven gently into daily life, a quiet invitation starts to form within you. It is not loud or demanding. It does not insist that you move quickly or decisively. It simply invites you to consider the next step, not the whole path, not the future in its entirety, just the next step. Love understands how overwhelming it can feel to think too far ahead. That is why trust is offered one step at a time. You may feel uncertain about what comes next. Even with healing unfolding and presence becoming more familiar, clarity may still feel incomplete. Love does not interpret this uncertainty as a problem. It sees it as part of the journey. Trust does not require full understanding. It begins with willingness to move gently forward, even when the way ahead is not fully visible. The next step does not need to be significant or dramatic. It does not need to change everything. Often it is small, almost unnoticeable. Love does not measure progress by size. A small step taken with honesty carries more meaning than a large step taken under pressure. You are not asked to be brave in ways that overwhelm you. You are invited to be present with what is possible. You may hesitate because you are afraid of making the wrong choice. Past experiences may have taught you that decisions can lead to pain or disappointment. Love does not dismiss this fear. It understands how memory shapes caution. Trusting the next step does not mean denying risk. It means trusting that care will remain with you regardless of outcome. There may be a desire to wait until you feel certain, confident, or ready. Love gently reminds you that readiness is not always something you feel beforehand. Often, it reveals itself through movement. You do not need to feel fearless to take a step. You only need to feel supported. Support is already present, even if fear remains. Trusting the next step also means releasing the need for guarantees. You may want assurance that things will turn out well before you move. Love does not offer guarantees in the way you might expect. It offers presence instead. You are not promised ease. You are promised companionship. That companionship does not end if things become difficult. You may notice that thinking about the future brings anxiety, while focusing on the present feels more manageable. Love encourages this awareness. Trust grows when attention stays close to where you are. You are not required to solve tomorrow today. Tomorrow will arrive with its own support. The next step may involve continuing rather than changing. Sometimes trust looks like staying where you are, allowing things to unfold without forcing movement. Love honors this as much as action. Trust is not always forward motion. Sometimes it is patience. You may feel pressure to move faster, to prove that healing has worked or that waiting is over. Love does not rush you to demonstrate progress. You are not being evaluated. The pace of your movement is allowed to match your capacity. Trust respects limits. There may be moments when you feel drawn towards something new, yet hesitant to leave what is familiar. This tension is natural. Love does not force you to choose abruptly. Trust can develop gradually, allowing you to step forward while still honoring what you are leaving behind. You may worry that taking a step will expose you to vulnerability again. Love does not deny this possibility. Movement often involves vulnerability, but vulnerability does not mean you are unprotected. You do not move alone. Care moves with you. Trusting the next step also means accepting that you may need to adjust along the way. Love does not expect perfection in your decisions. If a step does not lead where you hoped, it does not mean you have failed. Redirection is not rejection. You are allowed to learn as you go. You may notice that trust feels different now than it did before. It may feel quieter, less enthusiastic, more grounded. Love invites you to honor this maturity. Trust does not always feel exciting. Often it feels steady. This steadiness is not indifference. It is resilience. There may be days when trusting even the next step feels heavy. On those days, love does not demand movement. Trust includes knowing when to rest. Pausing does not mean you are stuck. It means you are listening to your capacity. You may find yourself comparing your path to others, wondering why their steps seem clearer or faster. Love does not measure your journey against anyone else's. Trust is personal. Your pace reflects what you are carrying, not what you lack. The next step may feel uncertain because it requires letting go of something familiar, even if that familiarity was uncomfortable. Love understands how familiarity can feel safer than change. Trust does not force you to abandon safety. It invites you to explore gently, without pressure. You may notice moments when clarity appears briefly, then fades. Love does not ask you to hold onto clarity tightly. Trust does not depend on continuous certainty. It develops through repeated experiences of being supported, even when clarity comes and goes. Trusting the next step also means allowing yourself to be guided by what feels honest rather than what feels impressive. Love values honesty over performance. You are not required to take steps that look meaningful to others. What matters is alignment with your inner truth. There may be fear that if you take a step, you will lose control. Love gently reminds you that control is not the same as safety. Safety comes from presence, not from certainty. You are safe even when outcomes are unknown. You may find that trust grows as you reflect on what you have already survived. Waiting, loneliness, doubt, weakness. You are still here. This is not an accident. Love has been present through every season. This history of care supports your next step. The next step may simply be choosing to believe that you are not alone. It may be allowing yourself to imagine a future without demanding that it be clear. Love honors these internal movements as much as external ones. You may notice resistance arising when you think about moving forward. Love does not push against this resistance. It listens. Resistance often carries information about what you need. Trust grows when resistance is met with curiosity rather than force. There may be moments when trusting the next step feels like an act of surrender. Surrender can feel frightening if it has been associated with loss. Love redefines surrender as release, not defeat. You are not giving up. You are allowing support. You may worry that trusting the next step will lead you away from what you hoped for. Love does not promise that every hope will be fulfilled exactly as imagined. Promises that nothing essential about you will be lost. You remain held through change. Trust does not require you to move confidently. It only requires you to move honestly. Even hesitant movement counts. Love does not measure courage by appearance. It measures it by willingness. There may be days when trust feels easier, and days when it feels nearly impossible. Love remains constant through both. Trust is not something you must maintain perfectly. It is something you return to gently again and again. You may begin to realize that trusting the next step feels less like a decision and more like a posture. A willingness to remain open. A refusal to close yourself off completely. Love supports this openness, knowing how easily it can be wounded. The next step does not need to be defined right now. You do not need to label it or explain it. You can allow it to remain simple. Love does not require explanation. It requires presence. As you consider what comes next, allow yourself to release the pressure to get it right. There is no single correct path. There is only movement guided by care. Love walks with you through every adjustment. You are not stepping into emptiness. You are stepping into companionship that has already proven faithful. Even if the ground feels unfamiliar, it is not unsupported. Stay here for a moment. Let the idea of one step settle. You do not need to rush. You do not need to decide everything. The next step will reveal itself in time, gently, without force. Love remains with you as you move, steady and attentive, honoring your pace, your hesitation, your courage. You can trust the next step, not because you know where it leads, but because you know who walks with you. As you arrive at this moment, there is nothing left for you to accomplish. You have walked through waiting, loneliness, strained faith, release, rest, weakness, healing, presence, and trust. Now you are allowed to stop moving forward for a while. Love does not ask you to continue thinking, deciding, or holding yourself together. It invites you to rest in what has already been carried for you. You do not need to prove that this journey meant something. You do not need to show strength or clarity to justify what you have endured. Love has witnessed every quiet moment, every unseen struggle, every silent breath you took just to make it through another day. Nothing about your experience has been overlooked. There is a gentle truth being offered to you now. You are safe to stop striving. You are safe to release the effort of becoming, fixing, or understanding. This moment does not require progress. It does not require insight. It only requires your presence, and even that is held gently. If your body feels tired, allow it to be tired. If your thoughts feel heavy, allow them to slow. You are not responsible for keeping everything in order right now. Love is not waiting for you to be ready. It is already here, steady and unchanging. You may notice a quiet settling inside you, not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer carrying it alone. This settling is not forced. It arrives naturally when pressure eases. Love does not demand that you feel peaceful. It simply removes the demand that you remain tense. There is an assurance you can rest in now. You are not forgotten, not in silence, not in stillness, not in the moments when nothing seemed to move. You have been seen, known, and held throughout this entire season, even when you could not feel it. You do not need to revisit every thought that troubled you. You do not need to replay every decision or question. Tonight, those thoughts can rest. Tomorrow will arrive with its own grace. For now, nothing needs to be solved. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not failing. You are exactly where you are allowed to be. Love has not misjudged your pace. It has walked with you through it. There is no expectation placed on you here. You do not need to be faithful in a visible way. You do not need to feel hopeful or certain. Quiet trust is enough. Quiet rest is enough. Quiet existence is enough. If sleep comes, let it come without resistance. If it does not, that is also okay. There is no correct outcome for this moment. You are not being measured by how well you rest. Love remains whether you drift or remain awake. You do not have to hold onto this message. You do not have to remember every word. Let it fade naturally. Let the assurance remain even as the sound disappears. Love does not depend on your attention to stay with you. There is a deeper message beneath everything you have heard. You are not alone. You never were. Not in waiting. Not in weakness. Not in doubt. Not now. You are allowed to lay down the weight of expectation. You are allowed to stop anticipating what comes next. This moment is not a preparation for something else. It is complete on its own. Nothing about you needs to change for you to be held. Nothing about you needs to improve. Love does not hold you conditionally. It holds you because you exist. Remain here for as long as you need. Let your breathing find its own rhythm. Let the day release you. Let the future wait. You are safe. You are seen. You are loved. There is no rush to leave this space. You are not being guided toward an ending that demands action. This moment is allowed to stretch, to soften, to remain open without purpose beyond rest. Love does not hurry you out of quiet. It stays with you, allowing stillness to do what it does best. You may notice your thoughts drifting, coming and going without direction. Let them move freely. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to organize them. Love is not threatened by wandering thoughts. It remains steady even when your attention fades. If memories surface, allow them to pass gently. They do not need interpretation tonight. They do not need resolution. Love holds what you release without asking you to explain it. Nothing you remember changes how you are held now. There is a softness available to you here, a place where effort dissolves and responsibility loosens its grip. You do not need to stay alert. You do not need to guard yourself. Love keeps watch without requiring your participation. You may feel your body settling in small ways, muscles releasing, breathing deepening, or you may feel nothing at all. Both are acceptable. Rest does not need to feel a certain way to be real. You are not expected to transition smoothly into peace. Peace is not demanded. It is offered. If calm comes slowly, that is enough. If it comes briefly and then leaves, that is enough too. Love remains regardless. There is nothing missing from you in this moment. You are not incomplete because you are quiet. You are not lacking because you are still. Everything essential about you is present. You do not need to replay what you have learned. You do not need to apply anything. These words were not instructions. They were reassurance. Let reassurance remain without effort. You may find yourself hovering between wakefulness and sleep. This space is safe. You do not need to choose one or the other. Love remains in both. There is no spiritual task being asked of you. No belief to hold tightly. No understanding to reach. You are not being tested here. You are being cared for. Time does not matter in this space. Minutes do not need to move forward. Nothing is waiting for you just beyond this moment. Love is not preparing you for something else. It is meeting you here. If emotions rise, let them be present without engagement. You are not required to process them. Love does not need you to be aware of everything to remain near. You may feel the weight you carried earlier becoming less defined. Not gone, but less sharp. This is not something you are doing. It is something happening naturally as pressure eases. There is reassurance beneath the quiet, a steady truth that does not need repetition. You are held. You are accompanied. You are not navigating anything alone. You do not need to remember tomorrow. Tomorrow will remember you. For now, this moment is enough. Let your breathing remain unstructured. Let your awareness soften. There is no edge to this space, no expectation of closure. Love does not step away when words end. It remains when sound fades. It remains when sleep deepens. It remains when consciousness shifts. You are not forgotten when you rest. You are not forgotten when you go quiet. You are not forgotten when you stop listening. Everything you need right now is already present. Stay, or drift, or rest. Love stays either way.